December 11, 1944. 5:47 Ulithi Atoll, Western Caroline Islands. The tropical night still clings to the anchorage like wet wool. Inside the vast natural harbor, more than 200 American warships lie at anchor. Carriers, battleships, cruisers, destroyers, blacked out silhouettes against a sky just beginning to pale in the east. The air is thick, humid, smelling of coral dust, diesel oil, and the faint rot of copper from the tiny islands ringing the lagoon. Aboard the fleet repair ship USS Jason RH-1, moored near the center of the anchorage, a single red lamp glows in the radar workshop 2 decks below the main deck. The compartment is a cave of test equipment. Oscilloscopes with their round green eyes, frequency counters, coils of coax cable, and the ever-present smell of hot bakelite and ozone. Petty Officer First Class Robert M. Page, no relation to the famous NRL scientist of the same name, wipes sweat from his forehead with the sleeve of his dungarees. The 29-year-old engineer from Springfield, Massachusetts, has been awake for 21 hours straight. His khaki shirt is dark with sweat under the armpits, and his eyes are red from staring at waveform traces that refuse to make sense. On the bench in front of him sits the heart of the problem, the local oscillator assembly from an SK-1 air search radar set removed from the heavy cruiser USS Boston, only hours earlier. The Boston had barely survived a kamikaze hit 3 days before during the Mindoro operation. Her skipper swore the radar had given no warning until the Val was already diving through the overcast, less than 3 miles out. Page isn't the only one who's noticed the pattern. Across the Third Fleet, radar officers are reporting the same terrifying symptom. Japanese aircraft appearing out of nowhere at 20 miles or less, sometimes already in their attack dives. The SK radars, the Navy's best long-range air warning sets, should be seeing bogeys at 100 miles or more. Instead, ships are dying because the radars are blind beyond knife fight range. Page mutters to himself as he solders a silver mica capacitor into the oscillator cavity. He's been chasing this ghost for 6 weeks now, ever since Jason joined Admiral Halsey's fast carrier task force. Every night, damaged radar components arrive by highline from ships that have limped back to Ulithi, burned out magnetrons, shattered waveguides, and always these local oscillators that have drifted so far off frequency they might as well be radio beacons for Radio Tokyo. He snaps the cavity cover back on, spins the tuning slug with a jeweler's screwdriver, and flips the power switch. The scope trace blooms into life, a clean, sharp pip at exactly 200 MHz. For a moment, the compartment is silent except for the low hum of cooling fans. Then the door bangs open. Lieutenant Commander Elias Mott, Jason's electronics officer, steps in clutching a message flimsy, his face grim even in the red light. "Page," he says without preamble, "SyncPack just bumped this to most immediate. Another carrier got hit at dusk yesterday, Princeton's sister, Hancock. Lost 31 aircraft overboard when a Judy came in low and unseen. Admiral Spruance wants answers before we sail for Lingayen Gulf in 4 days. The whole damn fleet's radar net is falling apart, and nobody at Pearl can tell us why." Page looks up from the bench, the glowing trace still dancing on the screen. "I think I just found why, sir," he says quietly. "And if I'm right, every SK set from here to Tokyo is flying half-blind, because of one stupid calibration mistake nobody caught for 2 years." He reaches for the logbook, flips to a fresh page and begins writing in careful block letters. December 11, 1944, discovered primary cause of progressive LO drift in SK/SK1 series radars. Lieutenant Commander Mott leans over Page's shoulder, the red lamp painting both their faces the color of fresh blood. He reads the log entry once, then again, slower. "Walk me through it, Petty Officer." "Slowly. Because if you're wrong, we're about to tear apart every radar on every capital ship in the fleet on the eve of the biggest amphibious operation since Leyte." Page wipes his hands on a rag already black with flux and carbon, then picks up the reassembled local oscillator like it's a live grenade. "It's the cavity tuning procedure, sir. The one in OpNav 20R44 and the SK Technical Manual. Page 312, paragraph 7. It tells techs to peak the LO for maximum second harmonic output on the spectrum analyzer at exactly 3000 MHz. That's how every set has been aligned since the first SK went to sea in 42. Mott nods impatiently. "Everyone knows that." "Here's the problem," Page continues, voice low but urgent. "The reflex klystron in the SK runs at 1500 MHz fundamental. To get a clean 3000 MHz harmonic for calibration, the tube has to be slightly overcoupled. That gives a beautiful sharp spike on the analyzer, and pulls the fundamental frequency high by almost 8 megacycles. He flips open a dog-eared notebook filled with columns of handwritten frequencies measured over the last 6 weeks. At room temperature the error is only about 4 megacycles. Acceptable. Barely. But these oscillators live right under the antenna rotator motor on the mainmast. When the set's been running combat watches, 12 on, 12 off, for weeks in the tropics, cavity temperature climbs to 65, sometimes 70 degrees Celsius. The brass expands, cavity volume increases, and that deliberate overcoupling turns into massive positive drift. Page taps a graph he sketched in pencil, a curve climbing relentlessly upward. By the time the LOs drifted 10 megacycles high, the receiver's intermediate frequency is completely out of the if strip's passband. Returns stronger than a heavy cruiser at 50 miles just vanish. The only thing the operator sees is noise until the Japanese plane gets inside 20 miles and the signal finally sidelobes into the skirt of the if response. That's why the kamikazes have been materializing like ghosts. Mott exhales through his teeth. How in the hell did this get past the acceptance trials at NRL? Because NRL tested them in air-conditioned labs in Washington, D.C., sir. Not on a rolling destroyer off Ulithi with stacked gas at 120 degrees washing over the mast. Silence hangs in the compartment, broken only by the distant clang of a bosun's mate piping reveille topside. Mott straightens. Proof, Page. I need proof before I send this up the chain. Page grins for the first time in days, a tired, feral thing, and reaches under the bench. He drags out a second LO cavity, this one still mounted in its original shockproof cradle, serial number stenciled in yellow. SK1LO4471. Pulled yesterday from USS Enterprise herself. I borrowed this from Biggie's radar gang at 0300. Watch. He connects it to the test set, powers up. The scope shows the familiar spike, but the frequency counter reads 1511.4 MHz. Now watch what happens when I do the approved calibration procedure exactly by the book. Page adjusts the tuning slug until the 3000 MHz harmonic is maximized. The counter on the fundamental rolls upward, 1502, 1504, 1506, settling at 1508.2 MHz. 8 megacycles high at 78 degrees ambient. And we haven't even started transmitting yet. Give it 4 hours of combat air patrol and it'll be worse. He kills power, lets the cavity cool for 10 minutes under a fan, then retunes. This time tuning for exact fundamental frequency using the wave meter instead of the harmonic method. The 3000 MHz spike is slightly lower and broader, but the counter now locks dead on 1500.0 MHz. Same output power, same receiver sensitivity. But now the frequency stays nailed to the chalk mark no matter how hot the mast gets. Mott stares at the two traces side by side on the dual beam scope like a man who's just seen the future. My God, he whispers. We've been fighting the entire war with one hand tied behind our back by a calibration note nobody thought to question. He snatches the message flimsy, scrawls across it in bold letters. Most immediate, critical radar deficiency identified. Recommend fleet-wide retuning procedure, then shoves it at the waiting messenger. Get this to Com 3rd Fleet radar officer soonest. And tell the yeoman to wake the captain. We're going to need every electronics tech in Ulithi anchorage on the Jason by 0800. As the messenger disappears up the ladder, Mott turns back to Page. You just saved a lot of American lives, son. Maybe the whole damn invasion of Luzon. What's your first name again? Robert, sir. Well, Robert, get some coffee. You're going to spend the next 3 days teaching 500 radar technicians how to unlearn the wrong way to tune an SK. Far above them, on the Jason signal bridge, the first pale streak of dawn finally touches the horizon, and somewhere out there in the dark, 1,000 radar antennas begin to sweep the sky, still blind for a few hours longer, but not for much longer. December 14, 1944, 6:30, Ulithi anchorage. The lagoon has become a floating university of radar. Every whaleboat, motor launch, and Liberty boat in the atoll is ferrying radar technicians, fire controlmen, and electronics officers across the repair ship Jason. They come in sweat-soaked khakis, some still carrying their sea bags because their ships are already fueling for the Lingayen strike. Lines form 3 deep at every hatch, a restless queue of 600 men clutching notebooks, wave meters, and the new 4-page mimeographed bulletin titled, Urgent, Fleet Radar Bulletin 44-27. Corrected Local Oscillator Tuning Procedure, SK/1 Series. Effective immediately, all units. Robert Page hasn't slept in 51 hours. He stands on a makeshift platform built from ammo crates in Jason's cavernous repair bay, A blackboard behind him covered in chalked cavity diagrams and temperature drift curves. A microphone rigged to the ship's 1MC system carries his voice to every compartment, to the flight deck where more men sit cross-legged among hellcats, even to the destroyers alongside where loudspeakers have been jury-rigged. Forget everything the manual told you about peaking the second harmonic, Page says, his voice hoarse but carrying. From this moment on, you tune for 0 beat on the fundamental using a calibrated wave meter or the BC906 frequency meter. The harmonic will look pretty. The fundamental keeps you alive. A hand shoots up from the front row, an ensign from USS Hornet, baby-faced and sunburned. Sir, Chief, won't that drop our transmitted power? The book says maximum harmonic means maximum ERP. Page doesn't even blink. He picks up the LO cavity from the bench, connects it to a dummy load and watt meter in full view of the crowd. Watch the meter. He tunes first the old way, beautiful sharp harmonic, watt meter reads 480 watts peak envelope. Then he retunes for exact fundamental. The harmonic blurs and drops, but the watt meter climbs to 512 watts and holds rock steady. Dead silence, then a low whistle ripples through the compartment. Temperature compensation, gentlemen, Page says. The cavity now has room to expand before it pulls. You lose 2% on a cold morning in Pearl. You gain 20% reliable detection range when it matters most, out here where the sun cooks your mast at noon and the kamikazes come at dusk. By noon the first teams are already going back to their ships. Destroyers lower radar antennas with block and tackle. Cruisers send men aloft in bosun's chairs with tool bags and the new bulletin folded in their shirts. On the carriers, flight operations are briefly suspended while technicians crawl into the SK bed spring on the island structure, retuning while pilots pace the flight deck and curse the delay. Page moves from ship to ship like a man possessed. He climbs the rolling mainmast of USS San Jacinto with a wave meter strapped to his back, eats cold sea ration beans on the signal bridge of USS New Jersey while showing Admiral Halsey's own radar officer how to 0-beat the Klystron, sleeps for 90 minutes in a destroyer's radar shack while the crew stands watch over him. On the evening of the third day, Captain Edwin T. Layton, intelligence officer for Admiral Spruance himself, steps aboard Jason with 2 Marine guards carrying a locked briefcase. He finds Page in the radar shop, asleep on his feet, literally swaying as he solders a new temperature-compensating capacitor into a spare LO. Petty Officer Page, Layton says quietly, Admiral Spruance sends his compliments, and wants you to have this. He opens the briefcase. Inside, on green felt, lies a bronze star medal, the ribbon still in its waxed paper wrapper. Page stares at it, confused. Sir, I haven't been in combat. You have now, Layton answers. As of yesterday, every carrier task group from here to Iwo Jima is reporting average detection ranges jumping from 28 miles to 94 miles on the same sets. Last night Task Force 38 intercepted a 12-plane kamikaze raid 110 miles out, shot down 9 before they even reached the destroyer screen. The Admiral said to tell you, one enlisted man with a screwdriver just saved more ships than most admirals do in a career. Page takes the medal with grease-black fingers, too tired to speak. Layton smiles faintly. Get some sleep, son. In 4 days we hit Luzon. Thanks to you, this time we'll see them coming. High above the anchorage, the great bedspring antennas of 100 ships begin to turn again, newly tuned, temperature stable, reaching out across the night sea like awakened giants. For the first time in months, the radar watches report not ghosts, but the clear, sharp blips of empty sky.
Principle 3. The space between perception and reality is where creation lives. When people misunderstand you, they create a story about you, a caricature, a simplified version. They put you in a box labeled with their own fears and limitations. Most of us spend our entire lives trying to break out of that box. We scream from the inside, "That's not me! Let me out!" But the master strategist does not fight the box. He recognizes profound truth. The space between their perception of you and the reality of you is a playground for genius. It is a zone of pure creative freedom. Because they do not understand you, they cannot predict you. Their expectations of you are based on fiction. This gives you an immense tactical advantage. While they are watching the caricature, you are free to build in the shadows. While they are underestimating you based on their limited perception, you are acquiring skills, forming strategies, and building your empire completely unobserved. History's greatest strategists, from Sun Tzu to modern-day entrepreneurs, have always understood the power of mystery. All warfare is based on deception. Sun Tzu wrote, This is not about being dishonest. It is about allowing others to hold their misconceptions, thereby concealing your true strength and intentions until the decisive moment. Your quiet colleague who is overlooked, she is building a business. The artist whose work is called confusing, he is developing a new language of expression. You, with your dream that no one else gets, you are operating in a dimension they cannot yet see. Stop trying to correct their map of your territory. Let them have their outdated charts. You are exploring new continents. The freedom you have been given is the freedom of invisibility. Use it. Create in the gap. Build in the silence. Let your results, when they finally erupt into the world, be the only explanation you ever offer